Did you know ASBN, America's Small Business Network, is now available on your TV? That's right. ASBN is now streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire Stick, and available for download in the App Store. Scan the QR code to download the ASBN app today. Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. You're watching another edition of the Small Business Show exclusively right here at ASBN.com and now streaming on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. Are you interested in discovering the strategies to successfully launch your startup? On today's show, we're joined by serial entrepreneur and author Colin C. Campbell. Colin's latest book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. Serial Entrepreneur's Secrets Revealed. It's a reader's guide toward entrepreneurial success. Colin's book recently hit #1 on Amazon's new releases for starting a business. Thanks for joining us, Colin. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk to our startup community out there.
Absolutely. I am so happy to be here.
Good. So let's start in the beginning here. For the people that might not be as familiar with your entrepreneurial journey as we are here at ASBN, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, it started right out of college. After I graduated from college, the first thing I did was actually go work on the family farm. That's it. That's how it started. Flogging vegetables, flogging vegetables.
Wow. And where in the country was that?
Up in Canada, actually.
Okay.
And we still own the farm today.
Okay.
There's a funny story behind that. I actually, after I sold my last company, my mother asked me to buy out the farm. And so we still own the farm that we've owned now in the family since 1940.
Okay. Wow.
And it's in the middle of a city. It's hilarious. So I started on the farm. And then there was this thing when I was in college called the internet. Have you heard about this thing?
I have it right here. I don't think it's going to last.
Yeah, exactly. So my brother and I, we launched an internet company. It became the fastest growing company in Canada.
Oh my
Number
gosh.
one.
Wow.
Number one fastest growing company in Canada. Well, that's where, and I was 28, 29 years old. We're a publicly traded company.
Wow.
That's pretty much the height of my 20s. And then we merged with a cable company.
Okay.
We applied for a license with the Canadian government.
Okay.
And our stock, and here's a company that I'm 28 years old.
Right.
I own 13% of this company. Now, I'd given up control. My brother and I had given up control when we did the merger.
Okay.
After we won the license, the stock goes up to over $1 billion.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Wow. Uh-oh.
What happened in March of, and you might remember this one. What happened in March of 2000?
Oh, the bubble. Forget it.
I asked a group of college kids that a week ago at FAU, and it was like, what happened? Nobody could remember.
I got just lambasted with stocks that I had with internet companies, and oh my gosh.
It was the dot-com crash.
Yeah.
The dot-com crash.
Yeah.
And the shares that had traded at $19 a share, I ended up selling for 6 cents a share.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
2 big lessons from that event. One, bad things do happen. We saw it in 2022, right? With the crypto crash, the tech wreck.
Yeah.
Bad things do happen.
Right.
And the second thing that we saw, back then was the dot-com crash. And also, when we did the transaction, we agreed to an 18-month lockup. So we were not able to sell our shares.
And no cash in this transaction. It was just a stock
for stock swap. 18 months.
Couldn't take anything off the table.
We had no liquidity. We had no control. So in the book, I have a chapter called Liquidity or Control.
Yeah.
So that's a lesson for every entrepreneur out there.
If
you're not in control.
Yes.
You got, then you have to have liquidity if you do an exit. And by the way, that's the genesis of Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
When you go through that experience, you go through a very tough time. I mean, emotionally,
sure.
People around me,
sure.
The media, it's on national television. I mean, I literally was driving through a McDonald's and someone said, I saw you on television last night.
Oh,
I'll just
that wasn't a good story.
I'll just have the McMuffin, please. Just give me the McMuffin.
That's right. Let me see if I've got. If
let me fast forward. My brother and I, we love technology, and so we piled back in. 6 years later, we did an IPO for another company, a hosting and email company, and we sold that to a Fortune 500 company for 17 times EBITDA, $124 million. It was a phenomenal exit.
Nice.
And you know what? This time, guess what? We got all cash.
I was going to say, you learned your lesson on that one.
But aren't the startup failures, the scars of our past
Yeah.
that guide us through our new ventures?
Sure.
Aren't they really? Like, why do we have to learn
Right.
the hard way? Why do I have to lose $100 million when I'm 28 years old? When
But
I
it
could
might
have read
been,
the book.
looking back, it might have been the best lesson that you
What?
could have gotten, that takes you from 28 years old, which a lot of kids are just, they're still surfing at the beach at 28 and they haven't figured out what they want. So, you know, by 28, you've learned some really important business and life lessons, right?
Oh, like I could have paid $40 and bought the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat.
There you go.
And learned that lesson.
That's
okay,
right.
so
That's right.
let's just
By
leave it at that.
By the way, I would say to our viewers that are listening, this is very, very good advice that Colin is sharing with you. A number of people that I have spoken to have shared similar stories. I don't know that they've put it in a book form, but if you have not gotten this book, we're going to show you how to get it. There's a link right below this video that you're watching. You're a click away from getting this kind of knowledge. As an entrepreneur, I will tell you, this is the kind of information that you need when you're starting out. That first thing there where it says start before the scale, exit, and repeat, that can be the determining factor whether or not you even scale, exit, or repeat. It's all about how you start and what the expectations that you're setting for yourself. So this book is so timely and it's needed for entrepreneurs and business owners. But I didn't mean to jump in there, but I'm really passionate about these kinds of lessons for our viewers.
No, absolutely. And Start, we spend a lot of time on Start.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what makes a startup successful? It's 30 years as a serial entrepreneur, 10 years writing this book, over 200 interviews, of which 50 actually made the book. And let me tell you, there is a formula.
Yeah.
Like we've put a lot of research. We had 6 full-time staff working on this book for the last
Wow.
2 years.
Wow.
Oh yeah, this is not a fluff piece.
Yeah. Wow.
This is something that Forbes published and has identified as one of their top books of the year.
That's fantastic.
They are all
That's
over
great.
this. This is it talks a lot in Start about what it is you need to do to identify ideas. Ideas are everywhere. As long as you're in the thick of it, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes my son was asking me about, he wants to be an entrepreneur. He just graduated from architecture. He's trying to launch a business. I said, the best thing you can do to launch a business is get a job.
Yeah.
Get a job in the industry you love.
Yeah.
And look for the problems in that industry. Mm-hmm. Look for the bottlenecks in that industry. If you can figure those out, you can begin to think about your business and moonlight on the side and get it going.
It's great advice.
Now, ideas are worthless.
Mm-hmm. It's all about execution.
It's all about ideas to action.
Mm-hmm.
And that's chapter 2 of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about all the necessary things you need to do to get to action. And we're talking about very simple things to do, like registering a domain name.
Yeah.
Check the database of trademarks.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how important this is. This is called the TESS database, TESS. It takes 10 seconds to check. I was working with a startup. 2 years they had a brand. I log into the TESS database. A Fortune 500 company owns their brand. They had to change their brand. They lost tens of thousands of dollars. It takes you 10 seconds. We lay it out one step at a time.
Yep.
These are the actions you need to take. And I'm not talking about open a bank account, set up a corporation. I don't go there. I talk about how you can succeed.
Sure.
And the entire section of Start ends with the 4 sticky note business plan. Okay? Because there's 4 ingredients.
4 sticky note business plan.
Why
this
sticky?
is my kind of
Why
business
sticky?
plan. Right?
No, but listen, why sticky? Because you can stick them up on the board. And remember,
can't do that with a cocktail napkin.
Exactly. And remember, most entrepreneurs are ADHD like myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So 4 sticky note, we stick them on the board. Now we can focus on it.
Yep.
Sticky notes are small,
mm-hmm.
right? So you can actually see, you can condense it. And we talk about the first sticky note. We're talking about what is your story? What is your purpose, your why, your X factor? What is your first stage gate? And we talk about stage gates. For every startup, they need to have a stage gate, a point in time.
A stage gate? Is that?
Yes, and this is in the book, and I know this is a unique concept. Okay, let me help you out here a little bit. Okay. Do you remember that racing car game when we'd put a quarter in and you're driving in the video game and
Sure.
at the arcade?
Sure.
And then if you get past a certain point, you get extended time.
Yep.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Every entrepreneur needs to set up a stage gate, a specific point in time. It needs to be smart, specific, measurable. Like it needs to be achievable and relevant and time bound.
Sure.
Okay. So if you set up that specific and measurable point in time, that is the point where if we hit that point, we either pivot or kill it.
Right.
Okay. But before that, we give ourselves the freedom. And this is stressful as an entrepreneur sometimes because you have a lot of naysayers around you. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have people around you, they're naysayers.
Right. So we give ourselves the freedom to be able to get to that stage gate. And by the way, when we get to that stage gate, we're now proving our concept, whether it's an MVP, minimum viable product, whether it's our first 100 customers is our first stage gate, whatever it is. Once you get to that point, we can now approach investors. Okay. The second is about people. Who are the people we need to get to the first stage gate? The third Post-it note is about money. How much money do we need to get to that first stage gate? And don't underestimate that. 82% of startups fail because they simply don't have the funding.
Right. Right.
That's the number one reason
I know.
that startups fail.
I know. It's unbelievable.
US Bank study did that. And lastly, we want systems on the last Post-it note, which all I'm asking for startups to do is write down some KPIs, key performance indicators.
Right. Right.
What are those indicators? Let's stop flying blind.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what we can do. And if you can make them forward-looking, like number of leads per day I need to make or calls I need to make per day, and that will lead to leads with proposals to sales, that kind of stuff. We can make them a leading indicator. That's even better.
Yep. And this is all in the book. I mean, this is
that
a textbook
section
that you would find in a university that goes, okay, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be in your own business. This is the kind of book you're looking for, right?
It's funny. I've done about 30 interviews in the last month, and multiple times people come up with the word textbook.
Yeah.
And I push back. It's not a textbook. You're talking to a farmer here. This isn't something like you read in college. It's a collection of stories, my stories, and 50 other serial entrepreneurs, authors, and experts who are in this book.
That's fantastic.
And it's a collection of stories that draw conclusions.
Yeah.
It really is a book for ADHD entrepreneurs. 58 chapters, 200 callouts.
Yeah. Wow.
Over 30 illustrations, original illustrations. We try to make it really simple. People have told me, I've got so many people saying to me, even my twin brother, he calls me up, goes, Colin, you know what? I liked your book. You know why? It's simple to read. You don't write very well. You write you like you're on the street. It's very simple. I even asked ChatGPT, what is the writing style of my book? And they said conversational.
That's great.
That's it. This is not a traditional textbook.
Because most entrepreneurs, and they're like you and I. They do have ADHD in a lot of cases, and they're A-type personalities, and they don't want to spend a whole lot of time reading a book. So the easier the book, the more readers are going to be reading it that are small business owners and entrepreneurs. If it's an easy read, it's something I can jump on a plane with, and by the next 3 hours I can finish the book, or at least most of it, then I'm in, right?
Exactly. Yep. And we do have an audiobooks on Apple, and Audible's coming out this week. We submitted a month ago. Look, this book is just hitting the shelves.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. We already sold out our first print run.
Wow. Fantastic.
Like Forbes, when they did the first print run, it was 1,500 physical books.
Yeah.
And I know physical books sound scary for most people out there. But let me tell you, this thing is a different piece of work that you've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've never.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, what are some of you're obviously, from your point of view, and you've been successful with exits of companies and building companies and such. Of course, it sounds like you weren't too successful with that first one, but you learned a lot. What are some of the hot areas? What if your son said to you, Dad, I want to go into a certain field that I think is going to be successful over the course of the next 10 years? What are some of the trends that you'd recommend to him, or some of the things to look at?
Okay, so I'm called in to do a speech at MIT to a group of very successful entrepreneurs in 2012.
Wow.
Okay, that's the genesis of the book.
Okay.
Because they look back at my career, It was run by a company called Gazelles, Vern Harnish and
Oh yeah,
Patrick
Vern, yeah.
Thean.
We interviewed him here on the show.
Very good. So
Yeah,
I interviewed him twice for the book as well.
He founded the
EO.
Yeah.
EO.
Yep. EO.
And I interviewed him for that as well. So
Okay.
I got the
Great guy.
real details, and that's in the book.
Yep.
And I was asked to speak there. It was a 4-hour seminar because I had done these startups that had scaled and exited for huge multiples over and over again. And what was my formula? What was my secret formula? So it was really about figuring out the patterns of the story, people, money, and systems for start, scale, exit, and repeat. And by the way, it's very different. But I'll tell you, one of the chapters, probably my favorite chapter, was when I got the opportunity to interview one of the heroes, icons of industry, or at least authors, was Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm, Inside the Tornado.
Okay.
And I had been following his systems for 15 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was just, I got so excited when I interviewed him.
Sure.
But in any case, he is the genesis behind Catching the Wave.
Okay.
Now, let me be very, very clear with you and your listeners. There has never been a better time in history to launch a startup than in the 2020s because of one thing: AI. This is a huge wave. This is a historical moment in time. Look, I was there in 1990s when we built the largest ISP in Canada. In 2000s, when we did a cloud computing company that expanded, went IPO, and sold to a Fortune 500 company.
Wow.
I was there in 2012 when we launched .club, which is an alternative to .com, .net, .org.
Yeah.
And sold over 1 million domain names and sold that to GoDaddy. And by the way, so every one of those situations was either a technological shift,
right,
or a regulatory shift. Well, we have not had as big as a technology shift than AI in my entire lifetime, in my entire career. And if we look at all the prior shifts, all the paradigm shifts that have occurred, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs have an opportunity to get in there before the big corporations. I worked for a Fortune 500 company for 3 years at the very top. And the fact is, they're not innovative. They're risk averse.
That's right.
That's the reality.
That's right.
Enter the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
AI is going to be an opportunity. Now, even if you're not launching an AI company, I want all of your listeners to know this, that every startup needs to embrace AI. And there are like 100 things that AI can do. By the way, I'm being interviewed on Friday, this Friday, by ChatGPT. It's hilarious. I've set the interview up. I've done some practice questions with her.
It's going to replace me as a news anchor here.
I don't think so, but at least I know I'm talking to a human right now.
Right.
I'm doing this interview live on Clubhouse, so I don't know what's going to happen. But I have her questions. She already did some weird questions.
That's funny.
Like, I don't know. It could be a train wreck. I have no idea. But it is. But I'm telling you, embrace AI. We use AI. My wife, we own a school, and my wife hadn't updated her blogs since 2021. And I said to her, "Why have you not done that? Like, let me help you out. I'll write 8 articles in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Literally.
Wow.
60 seconds of prompt.
Using AI.
This is an AMI Montessori school. It's a very high level Montessori school.
Sure.
So ask questions like, what is the difference between AMI and other Montessori schools? And by the way, I like to always add this. Make it 8, give me 10, give me 12. People like those I do Forbes articles as well, not just the book. So I'm a Forbes contributor. So I do those articles as well. So everybody seems to love, give me 10 tips to launch a business or 10 reasons why startups fail to scale. And within 10 minutes, I had 8 articles. She looked at every article and she's like, oh my gosh,
not incredible.
They're perfect.
Not
they
incredible.
were absolutely perfect. So if you're not using AI as a startup, just begin to wrap your brain around it. Don't be one of those
I know
old folks who say, you know what,
I can't
this
do
is the way
it.
I've been doing it. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right. Colin C. Campbell, serial entrepreneur and author, and an award-winning author here, and they're flying off the shelves. So again, we're going to make it just a link. Just click the link below this interview. You owe it to yourself and your family to make it easier. This guy has put together all of this knowledge Make it work for you. So, Colin, thank you so much for joining us. We definitely want to have you back because I got about 10 more questions that I want to ask you about all of these different topics in the book. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No, I absolutely appreciate it. And we love to give back here at Startup Club.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.